Why should I waste my life on you and those useless kids, when I can have the woman I truly love? Those were the venomous words my husband spat at me the day he dragged his ex out of the water, and left me and our children behind. In that single moment, he didn't just abandon us, he mocked us, crushed us, and showed the world exactly how little we meant to him. I held my children close, broken but determined, as the man I once called my husband chose his past over the family he built. We were left to suffer, to struggle, to bleed in silence. But life has a way of turning shame into glory. And just when I thought our story had ended in pain, a billionaire walked in, and what followed no one could have imagined. Sometimes the ones who break you become the reason you rise. This is my story, and today it is being retold by me. Hello family, welcome back. Before we begin, I have a small but heartfelt request. Please, subscribe. Your support is what keeps these stories alive. Every time you click that button, you're helping us share voices that would otherwise be forgotten and stories that deserve to be heard. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from, because together we are not just telling stories, we are keeping hope alive. Clara Bennett woke before the alarm. The house was quiet except for the rhythm of the ocean. Beyond the rented beach cottage, a thin line of light cut across the curtains. She lay still for a moment, listening. Lily's soft snore from the next room. Ethan's stuffed dinosaur squeaking each time he rolled over. The small sounds made her chest warm. This was the kind of morning she used to dream about, simple, safe, the four of them together. She slipped out of bed and padded to the kitchen. Coffee, toast, fruit, fast and easy. She set out. Sunscreen, towels, and the bright red pail Lily insisted on bringing, even though she was 9 and too old for a baby bucket. Today was a family day. Sand castles, seashells, maybe 1 hour, where Daniel would put away his phone and be theirs. He appeared in the doorway, hair still wet from the shower, jaw already set like he was late for something. We leaving soon? In 10, Clara said. I packed sandwiches. Water's in the cooler. Lily thumped down the hall. Mom, can I wear your sunglasses? Take the blue ones, Clara said. The black ones are too big. Ethan ran past with a towel trailing behind him like a cape. I'm a lifeguard, he yelled. Daniel managed to smile at that. Let's go, crew. On the beach, the morning air was cool and clean. Families were already staked out with umbrellas. A few surfers cut neat, sharp lines through the waves. Clara spread their blanket. Daniel took the kids to the water's edge to jump the small breakers. She watched him lift Ethan high and pretend to toss him into a wave. Ethan's laugh carried on the wind and landed in Clara's chest. She tucked the moment away like a keepsake. Mom, come see, Lily called. There's a crab. Clara jogged down, caught Daniel's eye, and for a heartbeat she saw the man she married, the one who used to read her drafts and argue over headlines at midnight just for fun. He used to call her the sharpest pencil in the drawer. They had been a team. Then the kids came and the team changed, and she told herself that change was normal. A shout rolled down the shoreline. Help! Someone! Please! Heads turned. A woman far down the beach waved both arms, pointing out to sea. Clara squinted against the glare. At first she thought it was a seal. Then she saw it. A head bobbing, arms slapping. The water wrong, weak and frantic. Daniel was already moving. He shoved his phone and wallet into Clara's hands. Stay here, he said. Call 911. She fumbled for her phone, fingers stiff. Yes, emergency. Someone's drowning. Whalers Cove, south side. By the time she looked up, Daniel was cutting through the water in long strokes. He was a strong swimmer, college swim team, long summers as a lifeguard. He'd saved people before, but never like this. Never with her heart beating in her throat and the kids gripping her waist. Is Daddy okay? Ethan asked. He's fine, Clara said, voice steady because it had to be. He knows what to do. The woman in the water went under for a moment. Clara's lungs seized. Then Daniel reached the spot and went under too. A wave rolled over them both. When it broke, Daniel came up, one arm around the woman's chest, turning her onto her back. He kicked hard, towing her in. People gathered at the shoreline. "Give them space," someone shouted. "Back up." Daniel carried the woman through the shallows and laid her on the wet sand. She coughed, sputtered, and rolled to her side. Daniel tilted her head and kept talking to her. "You're okay," he said. "You're okay." Clara rushed forward with a towel. "Here." The woman looked up, and Clara's breath snagged. Blonde hair darkened by salt water. Sharp cheekbones Clara had seen in old photos. Eyes the color of cold glass. Sophie Miller, Daniel's ex. She hadn't seen Sophie in almost a decade. Last she heard, Sophie moved away, got into some lifestyle marketing, traveled a lot. Seeing her now felt like a door opening to a room Clara never wanted to visit again. "Daniel." Sophie's voice broke. "You?" "Yeah," he panted. "It's me." Sophie's hand gripped his wrist like a child grips a ledge. "You saved me." He smiled down at her. A small, private smile that made something tilt inside Clara. "You're safe." Paramedics arrived. They checked Sophie's pulse, put an oxygen mask over her face, wrapped her in a blanket. She kept her eyes on Daniel the whole time, and when they lifted her to the gurney, she reached for him again. He walked beside them up the beach as if pulled by a string. "Mom," Lily whispered. "Who is that?" "Someone Dad used to know," Clara said. "He helped her. That's what matters." She meant it. In that moment, she meant it with everything she had. Her husband had saved a life. She was proud. She told herself the tight heat behind her ribs was only adrenaline. She told herself not to be small. Sophie was stable and refused the hospital. She sat under their umbrella, shivering and smiling. With gratitude. "I can't believe it's you," she said to Daniel. "Out of everyone on this planet, it had to be you." "Small world," he said. "I didn't recognize you at first," Sophie said, looking past Clara as if she was part of the scenery. "You look different." Clara tucked a wet strand behind her ear. "We have 2 kids," she said lightly. "Different comes with the job." Sophie's eyes widened at the children. "You're a father. Daniel, you're a dad." He nodded. "This is Lily and Ethan. And my wife, Clara." Sophie turned to Clara with an airy smile. "Thank you for sharing him with the world today." Clara held her gaze. "He always had a way of showing up when it mattered." "Still does," Sophie said softly, eyes back on Daniel. Clara felt the smallest shiver cross her arms, though the sun was warm. She wrapped the beach towel tighter and told herself not to read into looks. People drifted away. The moment turned back to normal. The kids wanted snacks. Daniel insisted on walking Sophie to her car. "Just to make sure she's steady," he said. Clara packed the cooler, folded the blanket, and watched their silhouettes move up the path. She told herself she wasn't jealous. She told herself she was reasonable. She told herself all the things a steady wife tells herself because she believes it's her job. They drove back to the cottage in careful silence, the kids asleep in the back. Daniel's hands were calm on the wheel. He looked lighter, Clara realized. Not only proud, lit from something else. He'd done something good. He deserved to feel that way. That night, she rubbed aloe on his shoulders. "You were brave," she said. "I'm proud of you." He shrugged, almost embarrassed. "Anyone would have done it." "Not like you," she said. He glanced at her, then away. "Sophie." She said she's staying at a place on Bay Street. She's still shaken up. I told her I'd check in tomorrow. Clara nodded. "That's kind." He put his phone on the nightstand face down. "It's nothing. She almost died." "I know." He looked at the ceiling. "You don't mind." "I said it's kind," she repeated. Her voice was even. Inside, a pin slid into a small, precise hole. Something clicked. 2 days later, the shift began. It was small at first. He corrected how she cut the sandwiches. "Too thick for the kids," he said, taking the knife from her hand. He critiqued her swimsuit. A brighter color would be fun. Sophie said bright suits are safer in the water. He laughed like it was a harmless tip. Clara smiled and said nothing. He started coming home later. Just swung by to see how she's coping. He described how Sophie was brave, how she didn't panic. She's been through a lot, he said one night. People don't know how strong she is. Clara folded laundry and lined up tiny socks. You always liked that about her, she said. What? The way she looks brave. He frowned. That wasn't fair. Maybe not, Clara said. She kept folding. He began to treat the house like an airport lounge. Drop in, recharge, leave. Lily noticed. Dad's always busy now, she said at dinner. Ethan asked, is he still a hero if he's not here? Clara swallowed and smiled for them. Heroes also work. We're okay. At night, she woke to the whisper of his voice in the hall. Laughter floated through the cracked door. Not his laugh, not when he told jokes to the kids or teased her about her coffee addiction. This was softer. The kind he used when he wanted to be charming. The kind he used before they were married. The kind he used when he wanted something. Yeah, he said once, low and warm. I remember that sophomore. When he came back to bed, Clara pretended to sleep. He smelled like the salt and citrus cologne he hadn't worn in years. On Saturday, Daniel's parents came by. Margaret Bennett wore pearls and cold perfume. Charles carried a bottle of wine and the sense that he was doing Clara a favor by ringing the bell. We heard about the rescue, Margaret said, taking a seat without being offered. A wonderful thing. And you must be grateful, Clara. Not every man would know what to do. He's always been good under pressure, Clara said. Margaret's smile was a thin ribbon. We ran into Sophie once at a charity luncheon. Such poise. She's done very well for herself. Clara's hands rested on the back of a chair. I'm sure she has. Margaret glanced at Daniel. Daniel, you've always had a way of lifting people. I hope that girl appreciates it. Clara felt something in her chest harden. After they left, she leaned against the sink, listening to the clock. Daniel stood at the window, phone in hand. I'm meeting Sophie at the pier, he said casually. She still gets flashbacks. I can help her talk it out. Clara nodded once. Do the kids need dinner before you go? He didn't answer the question. I won't be late. He was. Sunday morning, Clara made pancakes. The kids fought over syrup. She sang a dumb song to make them laugh. Daniel came in, kissed the crown of Lily's head, and poured coffee without looking at his wife. Clara, he said, like he'd been rehearsing. Can we talk? She wiped her hands and faced him. Yes. I think you've let yourself go a bit. He began, voice gentle, words sharp. Not just appearance. Everything. The house. Your ambition. Sophie said. She held up her hand. Stop. His eyes flashed. I'm trying to be honest. Then be honest with yourself, she said. You like how she looks at you. You like how the world looked at you after the rescue. You feel big again. He blinked, surprised, then smoothed his features. She almost died. I know. He left for a quick check-in and returned after midnight. Clara lay awake and stared at the ceiling. In the silence, truth rose like tide water. She had given up her newsroom and grabbed onto this family with both hands because love to her was building. She could feel him unbuilding it piece by piece. She started watching, not to trap him, to confirm what her skin already knew. His phone, once face up, was always face down. He took it with him to the bathroom. He changed his password. He began to shave in the evening. He bought a new shirt and said it was on sale. When he hugged her, his arms did the motion but no weight rested on her. One night, past midnight, the soft laugh returned through the thin wall. So you remember the hotel on Seaport? Daniel murmured. Clara sat up, heartbeat loud. She swung her legs over the bed and stood barefoot on the cool floor. In the mirror, she looked like a woman who had walked a long way without water. She walked to the hall and stopped just before he could see her. "Tomorrow then," he said into the phone, voice dipped in honey. "Same place." In the morning, Clara packed the kids' lunches and set them on the counter. "I'm going into town," she told Lily. "Mrs. Harris next door will watch you for an hour. I'll be back before school." "Okay," Lily said, trusting and bright. Clara kissed her forehead and tucked Ethan's hair behind his ear. "Be good for Mrs. Harris." She drove toward the water with the windows down so the cold air would keep her from shaking. The hotel sat on a corner near the harbor, glass doors polished, a lobby that smelled like lemons. And money. She parked across the street and waited. At 10:15, a rideshare pulled up. Sophie stepped out, the ocean light catching her hair. She wore a white dress that made her look like she hadn't almost drowned at all. She checked her phone, smiled at something on the screen, and walked inside. Clara stared at the glass doors, the revolving circles of people whose lives had never touched hers. She could still turn around, she thought. She could pretend she never saw. She could go home and bake cookies and tell herself he was just being kind to someone who needed kindness. But she had been a journalist once. She knew the value of facts. 10:20 Daniel arrived. No hesitation. No look over his shoulder. He walked through the same doors a man makes when he knows exactly why he is there. Clara got out of the car on legs that didn't feel like hers. She crossed the street. Inside, the lobby glowed warm. Pianist played something soft. She stepped to the desk and smiled at the woman in a navy blazer. "Good morning," Clara said. "My husband checked in ahead of me. Daniel Bennett. I think they put us under his name." The clerk typed, nodded, then frowned. "I'm sorry. I'm not seeing a Clara on the reservation, but I do see Mr. Bennett in a room." Clara leaned in just enough to see the room number flash on the screen before the clerk moved to cover it. 428. "Thank you," Clara said, voice faint, and walked away as if she'd forgotten something, as if she hadn't just felt the ground slip. She took the elevator alone. The mirrored walls made 3 Claras, then 4. The doors opened. On the 4th floor, carpet quiet under her feet. She counted the rooms. 422. 424. 426. She stopped at 428. For a long breath, she stood still. She could hear voices muffled and close. A laugh she knew was his, a higher laugh that slid under her skin like cold water. Clara raised her hand and knocked. Silence fell. Then a whisper. Then the lock clicked, and the door opened a narrow inch. Daniel's face appeared in the gap, color draining as if someone had pulled it out of him with a straw. Behind him, a flash of white. The edge of a dress, a bare shoulder, a gasp. "Clara," he said, voice empty of anything that could save him. Her gaze dropped to his unbuttoned collar. She lifted her eyes and saw it clear. The same look she'd spotted on the beach, lit up, chosen, alive. Only this time it was not a life he saved. It was the one he was willing to drown. "Room service," Sophie called brightly, too bright. Clara didn't answer. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. The moment made its own sound like glass, cracking somewhere deep. She held his stare for a full, clean second, long enough to make it real, and then she turned and walked back down the hall, her steps even, her spine straight, her name returning to her one quiet syllable at a time. If you haven't subscribed yet, we'd love for you to join our community by hitting the subscribe button. Through our stories, we build hope and give a future to children and women who have been abused all over the world. Motivate us by subscribing and turning on your notification bell so you never miss a story that matters. Also, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from, and how did this story speak to you? Clara waited until the kids were asleep. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car passing outside. Daniel sat in the living room scrolling on his phone, the glow lighting his sharp features. She stood in the doorway, her arms crossed. "We need to talk." He didn't look up. "About what?" "About Sophie. About you being gone all the time." About the way you look at me like I'm furniture. Daniel sighed like she was nagging. Clara, not tonight. Yes, tonight. Her voice cracked. I've been patient. I've been silent. But I can't keep pretending. This is normal. You spend every night out. You don't even notice when the kids are crying for you. Finally, he looked up. His eyes were cold, flat. You've become invisible, Clara. Sophie makes me feel alive again. The words landed like a knife. She staggered back a step. Invisible? After everything I gave up? After raising your children? Keeping your home? Putting my dreams aside? You chose that, he cut in. I never asked you to quit journalism. I never asked you to give up. That was you. Her hands trembled. I chose us. I chose family. And you. Daniel stood, towering over her. Sophie sees me. You just expect. You keep score. She laughs at my stories. She looks at me like I matter. You don't understand what that feels like. Anymore. Clara's chest ached as though he'd physically struck her. She's your past. I'm your wife. He smirked. Maybe that was a mistake. The days that followed bled together in sharp cuts of disappointment. Daniel missed Lily's school recital. Clara had dressed their daughter in her best dress, tied a bow in her hair, and sat in the front row with Ethan on her lap. She watched Lily's small face scan the crowd, searching for her father. When the performance ended, Clara hugged her tightly and whispered, Daddy wanted to be here. But Lily knew. She didn't cry, but her eyes dimmed. On Ethan's birthday, Daniel promised he'd be home early. He showed up after midnight, smelling of whiskey and Sophie's perfume. The half-eaten cake sat on the counter. The candles melted into wax puddles. Clara had blown them out with Ethan, pretending it was a fun game. When she confronted Daniel again, he shrugged. Work dinner. Work doesn't wear red lipstick on your collar, she said softly. He didn't bother denying it. Sophie, meanwhile, wasn't subtle. She posted photos online, champagne glasses clinking, her hand with Daniel's watch visible, a reflection in a restaurant mirror that showed his profile. To the public, it was coy. To Clara, it was a knife twisting deeper. Her phone buzzed with messages from acquaintances. Is this your husband? Thought you should see this. She stopped replying. Silence was her only shield. One evening, Margaret and Charles Bennett invited Clara to their home. She dressed carefully, hoping maybe they wanted to talk sense into their son. Their mansion was immaculate. Clara sat on the edge of a leather sofa, hands folded in her lap. Margaret sipped her wine. Clara, you've been good for Daniel. But lately it's clear this marriage has run its course. Clara blinked. Run its course? We have children. Charles leaned forward, voice smooth. Daniel needs someone who elevates him. Sophie is sophisticated, well-connected. She can help him in ways you can't. Clara's throat burned. You're his parents. You should be encouraging him to work on his marriage, not destroy it. Margaret's smile was sharp. Sometimes love means letting go. You've dragged him down long. Enough. Clara stood, her knees trembling. I gave him everything. And you'd trade me for someone who looks better in your country club photos. They didn't deny it. She walked out, her chest hollow, her ears ringing with humiliation. The final blow came a week later. Daniel sat at the kitchen table, a checkbook open, documents spread out. What's all this? Clara asked cautiously. Finances, he said flatly. I'm moving out. The words hung in the air, heavy and cold. What about the children? She whispered. I'll see them when I can. Clara gripped the back of a chair. You're draining our account? He didn't look guilty. I earned it. You'll manage. Maybe it's time you start working again. Her voice rose, breaking. You're leaving us. For her? For Sophie. He stood, buttoning his coat. Don't make this ugly. She makes me happy. That's what matters. Clara's hands clenched. You'll regret this. Daniel shrugged. Doubt it. And with that, he was gone. The house felt emptier than it ever had. Bills piled on the counter. The children asked questions. She didn't know how to answer. At night, she cried into a pillow so they wouldn't hear. But the truth, the real truth, came weeks later. Clara ran into an old friend at the grocery store, a woman named Hannah who had connections in town. Hannah lowered her voice. "You know Sophie's drowning? It wasn't an accident." Clara frowned. "What do you mean?" "She planned it. She made sure Daniel was there. She told people before that she had a way to get him back. She staged the whole thing." The air rushed out of Clara's lungs. "You're saying—" "I'm saying she knew exactly what she was doing." Clara stood frozen in the produce aisle, gripping a bag of apples she didn't remember picking up. Her mind reeled. The rescue, the tears, the gratitude. It had all been theater. A trap. And Daniel walked straight into it. Clara realized then it wasn't just betrayal. It was manipulation. And she and her children were the collateral. She walked out of the store, apples still in the cart, her heart pounding with something sharper than grief. It wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The mornings were the hardest. Clara woke before the alarm, her chest heavy, the silence pressing against her. The bed was cold on Daniel's side, though he hadn't slept there for weeks. Bills covered the kitchen counter like a second layer of wallpaper. Lily patted in one morning, her hair tangled, her eyes tired. "Mom, do we still have money for field trips?" Clara smiled the smile she had been practicing. "Of course, baby." She lied because the truth would crush them both. After dropping the children at school, she changed into her waitress uniform for the diner, worked the morning rush, changed again into black slacks for her afternoon cleaning job, and sometimes spent evenings babysitting for neighbors. She kept moving because stopping meant feeling, and feeling meant drowning. At night, when the kids were asleep, she let the tears come. Quiet, careful tears so they wouldn't hear. It was during a catering gig at a charity gala that everything began to shift. Clara carried a tray of champagne flutes through a glittering ballroom, the chandeliers throwing diamonds of light across the polished floor. Men in tuxedos and women in sequin gowns laughed easily, their world far removed from hers. She balanced the tray, weaving between clusters of donors, when a calm voice stopped her. "Excuse me." She turned. The man wasn't like the others. He didn't carry himself with arrogance. His tux was simple, no flash. His eyes were steady, curious. "I noticed you've been watching the speeches instead of the guests," he said. "You used to be in media, didn't you?" Clara blinked, startled. "How could you possibly know that?" "Your eyes," he said simply. "Reporters look at rooms differently." She laughed once, softly. "I was a journalist. A long time ago. Why stop?" She adjusted the tray in her hands. "Life, family, choices, or sacrifices," he said gently. Her throat tightened. She gave a small nod. "I'm Alexander Cole." He offered a hand. She hesitated, then shook it quickly. His grip was firm, not overpowering. "Clara Bennett," she said. Something flickered in his eyes, like he recognized her name, but he let it pass. "You're wasted, carrying champagne." She bristled. "It's a job that hides talent," he replied. The next day, Clara received a call from an unfamiliar number. "This is Alexander Cole's office," the voice said. "Mr. Cole would like to meet regarding a temporary position, public relations." Clara almost hung up, but curiosity and desperation made her agree. At his downtown office, Alexander handed her a stack of press releases. "Edit these, cut the fluff, make them breathe." She sat at the sleek desk, red pen in hand. Within an hour, she had transformed lifeless jargon into sharp, compelling stories. Alexander returned, scanned her work, and raised his brows. "You still have it." Clara shrugged. "Once a reporter, always a reporter." He leaned back. "Then why waste it?" "I told you. Family. Daniel, he wanted stability." Alexander studied her. "And what did you want?" Clara hesitated. "I don't know anymore. Then find out, he said. Start here. Temporary contract. Low stakes. But prove yourself. Her chest tightened with something she hadn't felt in years, possibility. I'll try. Weeks turned into months. Clara worked part-time at Coal Industries while still juggling other jobs. She edited, drafted statements, handled media calls. Her instincts sharpened quickly and Alexander noticed. You cut through noise better than my executives, he said one afternoon. That's rare. She flushed. I just know what people pay attention to. He smiled faintly. No, you know how to tell the truth even when dressing it up. That's rarer. His words planted something inside her. A seed of pride. Meanwhile, Daniel's world was unraveling. Word trickled back through whispers. Sophie spent recklessly. She dragged him to luxury resorts, posted photos with captions like, "Living my best life." Daniel appeared only in blurred reflections, or the corner of her selfies, like an accessory she barely acknowledged. Clara overheard neighbors. Did you see Sophie's post? She called Daniel her sidekick. Can you imagine? Clara tucked her chin and kept walking. She didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She just held Lily's, and Ethan's hands tighter. One night, Daniel showed up unannounced. He stood on the porch, rumpled, smelling faintly of alcohol. Clara, can we talk? She crossed her arms. About what? She's not who I thought, he muttered. She laughs at me, says I'm pathetic without my family man image. Clara, she doesn't understand me like you do. Her jaw clenched. You made your choice. I made a mistake. Her eyes burned, but her voice was steady. Mistakes don't empty bank accounts and abandon children. That's not a mistake. That's betrayal. He reached out, but she stepped back. Go home, Daniel. Wherever that is now. He left, shoulders slumped. She closed the door and leaned against it, shaking. At work, Alexander continued to be steady, patient. He never pushed, never asked for more than she could give. One evening, after a long day, he walked her to the elevator. You've grown, he said simply. Into what? She asked. Into yourself again. She looked down. It doesn't feel like enough. He studied her. A good man builds your peace. A bad man feeds on your silence. Which do you think you've had? Clara swallowed hard. The wrong one. Then stop feeding him, Alexander said. The twist came quietly. One night, Alexander called her into his office. His tone was serious. I need to tell you something. Not as your boss, but as someone who respects you. Clara tensed. What is it? I did some digging. Sophie Miller and your mother-in-law, Evelyn Bennett, know each other. Same private club. Same charity boards. Sophie didn't just stumble back into Daniel's life. She was introduced. Clara's stomach dropped. Introduced. Alexander nodded. Evelyn believed Sophie could give Daniel status. Sophie wanted access to the Bennett name. You were never meant to last. Clara's hands shook. They planned it? From the beginning. Yes. His voice was gentle. You were collateral. She stood, pacing. Images rushed back. The rescue, Sophie's gratitude, Evelyn's smug looks. The drowning hadn't been fate. It had been bait. And Daniel swallowed it whole. Clara's throat tightened. All this time I thought I wasn't enough. Turns out I was too much of a threat to their perfect picture. Alexander stepped closer. Don't carry their shame. It was never yours. Her eyes filled, but her spine straightened. Then I'll show them I don't break that easily. Alexander gave a small nod. That's the Clara I see. That night, Clara lay awake listening to her children breathe. She thought of Margaret's sharp smile, Sophie's stage drowning, Daniel's cold words. They had tried to erase her, to write her out of her own story. But she wasn't erased. She was still here, working, fighting, rising. And for the first time she began to believe that maybe, just maybe, her story wasn't ending. Was just beginning again. Clara had learned to walk into boardrooms without shrinking. At first, she had carried herself like a guest in Alexander Cole's world, unsure if she belonged, afraid someone would point and ask her to leave. But now, a year later, she walked as if she owned her space. Her heels clicked against marble floors, her head held high, her notes precise and sharp. She wasn't just the woman Daniel abandoned. She wasn't invisible. She was Clara Bennett, the lead PR strategist for one of the biggest corporate campaigns of the year. Magazines wrote about her brilliance. A natural storyteller, one article praised. Clara Bennett is the strategist who turns silence into power. At night, she tucked Lily and Ethan into bed, kissed their foreheads, and thought, "This is enough. This is mine." And then the past came crawling back. It happened at a press event in a downtown hotel. Clara stood behind the podium, cameras flashing, microphones angled toward her. She announced the launch of a campaign supporting women entrepreneurs. Her words were measured, strong. The applause had barely settled when she saw him. Daniel. He stood at the back of the room, thinner than she remembered, his suit ill-fitting, his eyes shadowed. Her heart didn't lurch. It didn't ache. It only steadied because she had expected this someday. After the event, while reporters swarmed, Daniel pushed through the crowd. "Clara!" His voice cracked. "Wait. Please wait." She froze, the cameras still rolling. He reached her, gaunt and desperate, his hand trembling as he extended it. "For the children," he begged. "Clara, I've made mistakes. Sophie, she used me. She's gone now. But you were my real home." She held her folder tight against her chest. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. "For the children, you abandoned them on birthdays and recitals. You left them to chase a ghost of your past. You chose that." Daniel's eyes filled. "I was wrong. I see that now. Please, just stop," Clara said, her voice cutting through the room. The silence after was sharper than shouting. Later that week, Margaret and Charles Bennett appeared at her office without warning. They looked smaller somehow, humbled. "Clara," Margaret said, her pearls trembling against her neck. "We were wrong. Sophie betrayed us all. She humiliated Daniel, drained him. We should have supported you. We see that now." Charles cleared his throat. "The family name is in ruins. If you'd consider reconciling, it could restore things. For the children." Clara's hands rested on the desk, steady as stone. "I was your convenience," she said evenly, "until something shinier came along. I am not your second choice, and I will never be your safe place again." Margaret's lips trembled. "Clara!" No, her voice was firm. "You don't get to rewrite history now that it hurts you." The night of the corporate gala, Clara arrived in a simple black gown. Alexander walked beside her, his presence steady, silent, grounding. He didn't try to overshadow her. He didn't claim credit. He simply existed as proof that love didn't need to be loud to be real. "You ready?" he murmured. "I've never been more ready," she whispered back. The event glowed with champagne glasses and soft music. Reporters circled, snapping photos. Clara shook hands, answered questions, laughed softly when Grace texted her. "You look like a queen who finally took her throne." And then chaos broke. Daniel appeared again. He wasn't supposed to be there. He had been served papers months ago, a restraining order that he ignored now as he shoved through the crowd. His hair was disheveled, his eyes wild. "Clara!" he shouted, his voice raw. "How dare you parade around like this? After everything." Security moved in, but he was faster. He cornered her near the gallery of campaign posters, his face inches from hers. "You humiliated me," he hissed. "You destroyed me. You owe me a chance to explain." Clara's jaw tightened. She didn't flinch. She didn't speak. Ethan, steady Ethan, saw the scene from across the room and strode forward. "Back away," he ordered, his voice firm. Daniel sneered. "Of course. The replacement. The savior. The man who gets my leftovers." He lunged, fist rising. Security tackled him before the swing landed. Cameras flashed wildly. Reporters shouted. Clara stood tall, her expression calm. She handed a folder to the nearest officer. Inside, months of evidence, emails, voicemails, photos of him lurking outside her home. The restraining order. Private investigators report. "I've been documenting everything," she said clearly. "He violated the order. He stalked me. This is proof." Daniel fought against the cuffs as the officers pulled him up. "You can't do this to me. I'm Daniel Bennett. She's nothing without me." The crowd gasped, cameras catching every word. Clara's gaze met his. Her voice carried like steel through the chaos. "Funny," she said calmly, "because I've never been more myself." The headline blazed across every screen by morning. Ex-husband of rising PR strategist arrested for harassment at gala. Daniel's photo in cuffs. Clara's face serene. Alexander at her side. The contrast told the story better than words ever could. Afterward, Clara stood with Alexander on the balcony of her apartment, the city glowing below. Lily and Ethan slept peacefully inside. "You didn't need to say anything," Alexander murmured. "But you did. And it was perfect." Clara smiled faintly. "I wasn't speaking for him. I was speaking for me. For the woman who thought silence was strength when really it was just surrender." He touched her hand gently. "Not anymore." She exhaled. For the first time in years, the air didn't hurt her lungs.